Rugrats is a show that does a great job of epitomizing early Nickelodeon and Nicktoons in general. It was Nickelodeon's first show that really popped off, and it absolutely made waves upon its initial run. People just loved it, myself included. It was so popular that it had not one, not two, but 3 full-length feature films that ran in theaters. Plus, who could forget those awesome orange VHS tapes that Nick was putting out at the time? Rugrats is a show that has a really specific feeling to it that really just brings me back to the 90s and my early childhood. It was a show that was able to pull off some pretty interesting moves. Given its premise, it was limited to a degree. Like, it's a kid's cartoon about a group of babies, so naturally one would assume that they would keep things lighthearted and positive. However, that never stopped the writers from going there and getting morbid at times. You have to keep in mind, though this show is about babies, it's also heavily about how these babies perceive the world, and to a baby, the world can be a terrifying place. That point of view works amazing for the show writers in the way that they can approach this show. It left them the opportunity to take an episode in nearly any direction that they wanted to, and it gave them the ability to explore some rather scary and sometimes very negative topics. However, on today's nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're gonna check out an episode that was so morbid that it literally left me with a feeling of existential dread as a kid. It's an episode that gets pretty dark and had some implications that were extremely morbid. I'm excited to dive into it, but first, I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for clicking on this video, thank you for checking out my channel, and if you're subscribed, thank you so much for being part of my YouTube journey. As of the time I'm planning this video, it's about 2 a.m. on February 5th. I'm almost at 68,000 subscribers, and I'm just feeling so thankful for every single one of you. I never thought I'd have what it takes to build such a great audience, and I'm just so happy to get to run this channel and have you all here with me for the journey. It blows my mind, honestly, to think that someday I might reach the point where I can quit my day job and just do this full time. It's just insane, and I just want you all to know that I appreciate you so much. Again, thank you for being here. I also wanted to say I'm testing the waters with possibly getting some merch going, and I'm hoping to gauge interest and see if any of you guys would be interested in some official DuskTillShawn merch. So far, I've got some stickers made. I have 5 different designs that I made myself, with only 10 of each design at this point, and I was thinking about selling them, so if you're interested, let me know in the comments. If enough people are interested, I'll take the steps to make it happen, but this initial run will be pretty exclusive considering I only have like 50 stickers right now. I don't know, we'll see what happens. Maybe if the stickers do well, I'll make some shirts or something like that too, but we'll have to see. But back to the topic at hand though, Rugrats, and the morbid episode that gave childhood Shawn feelings of existential dread. We're looking at the season 3 episode, Chuckie's Wonderful Life. This episode starts out at Chuckie's house as we see the babies in their playpen admiring a shiny CD that Chaz has on display on a table nearby.
Let's go play with it. Wait! I don't know if this is such a good idea. That's my daddy's favorite toy. But look how shiny it is. Now that you mention it, it is kind of shiny. And look how silvery it is. Look how round it is. Oh, I guess it's okay if we're really careful.
Just then, Angelica storms up, yelling at the babies and asking if they're ready to play a game of pin the tail on the diaper. Chuckie quickly takes the CD and he hides it under a teddy bear, but unfortunately he rolls a 1 on the dexterity stealth check and Angelica totally notices him hide the CD. Chuckie tries to play coy, but Angelica fools them.
Say, isn't that Spike out there? Spike? No, Spike's at home, Angelica. Sure looks like him. And there's a guy with a net chasing him. Wait, 2 guys. No, my mistake. They're monsters with nets. Spike! Hey, Angelica, Spike's not out there. Huh, must have been some other dog. You guys, it's gone! What's gone? My dad's favorite toy!
Just then, Chaz walks up to check on the babies, and he notices that his Latvian folk dance CD is gone. He goes on the hunt for it, looking rather upset.
Boy, your daddy sure looks sad. You! This is all your fault! Huh? I told you I didn't want to play with that toy, but you had to make me! Now it's lost! For Chuckie! I thought you was my friend, and now you lost my dad's favorite toy! But we didn't! That's the last time I ever listen to you guys! Come on, you guys, let's go. I don't think Chuckie wants to play with us right now.
After the babies walk off, Angelica walks up pretending to actually care as Chuckie tells her what's wrong. I want to point out that in this interaction right here between the two of them, Chuckie explains how he played with the CD, then lost it, and when his dad saw that it was gone and got upset, he blamed Tommy, Phil, and Lil, even though it wasn't their fault, and now everyone is mad at him. Angelica makes a terribly mean effort at empathizing with Chuckie.
I know just how you feel. You do? Sure. You see, Chuckie, there are two kinds of people in this world. People who make things better, people like me, and people who just seem to, well, get in the way. People like you. Isn't there anything I can do? Not really, Chuckie. The bottom line is, we'd all be a lot better off without you.
This leaves Chuckie up in the middle of the night, pacing in his room, when he gathers up all of his favorite toys, packs them up in a blanket with a stick, and he puts on his cap as he goes to take off. We see Chuckie go to his dad's room, open the door, and take one last look at his dad as he sleeps. With tears in his eyes, Chuckie shuts the door and heads off into the night. We see him walking up to a bridge when this happens.
Hey, I don't think that's such a good idea. Who said that? Me. Oh, hi. Who are you? I'm your gardening angel. I was sent here to make sure you don't do anything dumb. Really? Yeah. Then where was you the time I got my tongue stuck on that ice cube? Or the time I got my head caught in the back of that weird-looking chair. Or the time I trapped myself in the bird cage. Give me a break. I'm only 2, you know. You can't just run away from home. People need you.
Chuckie argues with his guardian angel, saying that the whole world would be better off without him. Then, out of nowhere, his guardian angel magically poofs them both back to the living room at Chuckie's house.
It's different. Where are we? Well, it's kind of complicated. See, this is what the world would be like if you was never born. Wow, why is it so messy? Without you around, your dad just doesn't see any reason to clean up.
So, what do you want to do now, Saki?
I don't know, Chaz. What do you think we should do?
Who's my dad talking to? Chuckie, you may not like what you're about to see.
We could just watch C-SPAN. They're showing the proceedings of the House Ways and Means Committee today.
Chuckie walks up to his dad to play with him, but he quickly realizes that he goes right through his dad. His guardian angel explains that he doesn't exist and no one in this world can see him, hear him, or play with him. We see Chaz telling his pal Saki that he wishes that he was real as he sadly walks off to watch some C-SPAN. As his guardian angel tells him that he hasn't seen nothing yet, the two leave Chuckie's house.
What's this? A reels. Come on. Where are we? This is where you live, Chuckie, only without you. But why are all the babies causing so much trouble? I guess there's no one around to tell them it's not such a good idea. Let's see how Phil and Lil are doing without you.
Inside the house, Phil and Lil are literally standing on the counter and just throwing dishes on the ground from the cupboard, destroying them just for fun. When they run out of dishes, the two of them run off and we see their parents on the couch crying their eyes out.
My beautiful home!
If only there were one baby, one mature, responsible, somewhat cowardly baby who would set a good example and tell them it's wrong.
Hi, guys. Saki and I were getting kind of lonely.
Hope you don't mind us stopping by.
It's getting worse.
Phil and Lil run around the house just destroying stuff as Chaz talks to Betty and Howard about how lonely he is, and the three of them have a nice cry together. With Chuckie being fed up with how bad this is, the angel decides to take him to their next stop, Tommy's house.
Pretty sad, isn't it? Why is he out here? Why isn't he inside playing with his toys? Angelica took his toys. But what about his house? She also took his house. Oh, what about his parents? You mean? Yep, she took them too. But how? One day she just came by, booted Tommy out, and took over. Well, why didn't anyone stop her? She just kept yelling and yelling till she got her way.
They go inside and they see Stu and Dee Dee looking all ragged and dirty as they're baking a cake and cookies for Angelica, who's in the background yelling at them. Dee Dee panics, saying that they can't keep her waiting. His guardian angel tells him that it gets worse as this happens.
Hey, I thought I told you to stay out of my sight. Angelica, Could I have just one little crumb of cookie, even if it's already been in your mouth, please?
Sorry, Tommy, no can do. If I started giving you crumbs, pretty soon I'd have to give them to everyone. And come to think of it, I'll take that rattle, too.
Chuckie tries to tell Tommy to stand up for himself, but of course, Tommy can't hear him since he doesn't exist. His guardian angel explains that without a friend like Chuckie, Tommy doesn't have the courage to stand up to Angelica. Chuckie argues, saying that doesn't make sense because Chuckie is always scared, but his guardian angel explains that that doesn't matter, and having a friend like him gives Tommy the strength to stand up to bullies like Angelica. Chuckie decides that this is the last straw, and he doesn't want to be in a world where he doesn't exist anymore. He exclaims that he doesn't think that running away is such a good idea, and just like that, his guardian angel poofs Chuckie back into his room.
Hey, where'd he go? My bandit's still here! Yellow pillow! Yellow nightlight! Yellow, you old jerk in the box! Ah! No fires, no broken buildings, no Angelica down, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy!
Chuckie walks out into the living room to find his friends in the playpen. They explain that their dads brought them there a long time ago, but Chuckie was sleeping the whole time.
Chuckie, we all felt kind of bad about your dad's toy getting lost yesterday.
So we brought you a surprise.
Ready?
Look, lots of shiny toys.
Our mommies and daddies weren't using them, so we figured your daddy could have them. Aw, you guys didn't have to. We wanted to, Chuckie. You're our friend.
Oh, my dad'll be so happy.
Just then, the doorbell rings and Chaz opens it to find Drew very angrily standing with Angelica.
I'm afraid we owe you an apology, Chaz. I discovered Angelica throwing this around her room. And since you're the only one I know who listens to Latvian folk dances, I figured it was yours.
I wondered what happened to this.
Now, what do you say, Angelica?
Sorry, Mr. Finster.
And she's not gonna get dessert for a whole week.
Chuckie is relieved to find out that it wasn't his or any of his friends' fault, and he looks out the window to see his guardian angel, who gives him a thumbs up before riding off into the sky on his motorcycle, which is where this episode ends. Where do I even begin with this episode? This one is just so mind-blowingly dark. Aside from the positive ending, it was basically all just negative things happening the entire time. There's a lot to dissect here, but I'm gonna start on a more light and kind of positive note. What's up with Chaz and his music choice? Like, I'm not sure what I expected him to listen to, but I definitely wasn't expecting something like Latvian folk dance music. There's nothing wrong with it at all. From what I listened to after watching this episode, it's relatively upbeat and pretty catchy, but like, that's such an oddly specific niche genre of music. Like, I thought I had specific taste in music with my love for MySpace era deathcore, grindcore, and sasscore, but I feel like in a way, Chaz kind of takes the cake for distinct music taste, with his favorite music being folk dance music from a specific country. Moving on from there though, how messed up is it that Angelica basically told Chuckie that he makes life worse for everyone around him? Like, this kid straight up told Chuckie that the world would be a better place without him, driving him to run away and wish that he had never been born. Honestly, Angelica has done a lot of messed up things in her time, but this one is up there. Just saying, if I end up covering Rugrats in my Dark Side Of series, the episode surrounding Angelica is probably going to be like 4 hours long, considering all the messed up things that she's done over the years, and calling it now, this episode will definitely be included. Seriously though, that's one of the most messed up things that she could have ever said to Chuckie, especially with the context of her being the one who caused the problem and straight up stole the CD in the first place. That whole interaction between Chuckie and Angelica was just disgusting on her end, and I can't blame Chuckie for feeling the way that he did. If someone said that kind of thing to me, especially at that young and formative of an age, I'd probably feel the same way. Moving on from that though, I definitely can't skip over the part where Chuckie leaves. Seeing him pack up his toys and put his cap on to leave was definitely sad, but when he opens his dad's door to get one last look at him, my heart nearly shattered into a million pieces. The way Chuckie had tears in his eyes as he shut the door just kinda killed me inside. I can relate a little too close to this. I try my best to keep my personal life out of YouTube and private for the most part, but I don't know, I guess I just feel the need to share this. My dad has brain cancer. His first seizure was in 2003, 20 years ago, when I was about 8 years old, and that was when they discovered his tumor. Thankfully, he went through treatment and got surgery. After many follow-up visits and brain scans, he was eventually in remission. Then, in 2007, when I was in 7th grade, another tumor had grown in his brain, and he had to go through treatment again, this time in a different part of his brain. The surgery was a lot more intense. They had to wake him up mid-surgery to have him read lines while they cut at his brain to make sure they didn't cut part of his brain that would affect his speech and his ability to process words. Yet again, after many follow-up visits and brain scans, he was in remission, and this time it was for over 10 years. Then, in 2020, his doctor found a new growth in his brain. This time, it honestly hit me differently. I'm an adult now, and I'm able to process emotions, and the reality of things kind of hit me a lot harder than it did when I was a kid. Especially with the pandemic happening at the same time, it was just a whirlwind of emotion for me. It's kind of hard to talk about, honestly, and I'd rather not go into too much detail, but my dad has gone through a lot of changes in his condition over the last 3 years, and honestly, I'm just thankful for every moment that I get to spend with him. I don't know. Sorry to dump all this on you guys, but I guess I just wanted to share some background. Needless to say, this scene with Chuckie basically saying goodbye to his dad hit me really hard. The next thing I have to bring up would have to be right after Chuckie leaves, when we see him walking and his guardian angel approaches him. As Chuckie approaches the bridge, his guardian angel says,
Hey, I don't think that's such a good idea. Who said that?
Now, I don't want to just assume the worst, but what was Chuckie doing? Why was he going directly to a bridge? Sure, he could have been just walking aimlessly, and that bridge was along his path, but with the added context of him wishing he was never born, could the writers potentially be insinuating him unaliving himself by jumping off the bridge? With this being a kids show, of course they can't push it any further, but back then, Nickelodeon had a tendency to push the envelope. Look at Ren and Stimpy or Rocko's Modern Life, for example. Those shows were loaded with morbid references and adult humor. I mean, did you see my spooky season video about that episode of Ren and Stimpy where they literally help a ghost unalive himself? It wouldn't be too far of a stretch to think that that's what they were insinuating. We definitely also have to take a moment to talk about Chaz's life without Chuckie. The writers made it seem like his life basically had no purpose without Chuckie. He lives in filth and squalor and talks to a hand puppet all day about how lonely he is. No offense to anyone who's a fan of it, but he watches C-SPAN for fuck's sake. In case you aren't familiar, C-SPAN is a real TV network that's headquartered in Capitol Hill, and all of its programming is centered around the government and politics. For the most part, it's coverage of like the US Senate and the House of Representatives and all that crap. Unlike Fox News or CNN, it's an unbiased and very matter-of-factual network, so you don't get like the spicy drama of one political side throwing mud at the other side. Personally, I find it very boring, but on that same note, I don't really care for politics at all, so I'm not exactly their target audience. But like, put that in context. Chaz is so lonely, and he's at the point where he watches C-SPAN for fun. Again, no offense to anyone who watches C-SPAN for fun, that's great and all, but with peace and love, that's not exactly my idea of fun per se. Moving on from there though, there's another small detail in this episode that was easily missed, and it happens during this scene where Chuckie and his guardian angel are talking outside of Tommy's house. In the background, to the lower right, you can see a house that's pretty much completely demolished and looks to be empty. This house belongs to none other than Susie Carmichael and her family. The house is destroyed, and we're not given any context to the fate of the Carmichael family, but it's pretty safe to say that their fate was grim if their house was left destroyed and abandoned. It would have been interesting to get some more context as to what had happened there, but nevertheless, the episode is only like 11 minutes long, and I totally get that they can't give us context for every character, but still, the state of their house left me wondering. I also find it super interesting how the world was changed and basically every other baby was causing havoc and being crazy, destroying stuff, but Tommy on the other hand was pretty much the only baby who was still well behaved. However, he was a complete pushover and easily manipulated. It's sad to see his life completely destroyed and taken over by Angelica. Honestly, I totally understand that this sequence of events was most likely a dream and was probably not rooted in any actual fact or evidence, but I do really like the idea that having a friend like Chuckie is what gives Tommy his courage and gets him to stand up to bullies. That's wholesome, and I just love it. The last thing I really want to touch on is Angelica. Like, what the actual fuck? Without Chuckie around, Angelica achieved total domination over Tommy's life. She has complete control over his toys, his parents, his food, and even his house. Like, Where the hell are Angelica's parents through all this? Drew literally just let his daughter take over part of his family's life? This was just mind-blowing to me. Angelica pretty much enslaved Stu and Dee Dee and has them working tirelessly around the clock to bake her cookies and cakes and stuff. I gotta say though, I did get a chuckle at how they drew Angelica on the throne. I don't mean this in a shamey way or anything like that, but seeing Angelica drawn obese was just kind of funny, only because we're so used to seeing her as like a small child. I gotta admit though, as dark as it was, this episode was actually fantastic. The show's producers did a fantastic job of making an episode that really causes waves of emotion in the viewer. Personally, it made me have a pit in my stomach as a kid. This is one of those episodes that just made me feel so bad for Chuckie, and Tommy on that note. Nobody deserves ever to be told that the world would be better off without them. That just hurts really bad, honestly. Seeing Chuckie driven to the point of wishing he wasn't alive just kind of hurts my soul. And just the hopeless state of the world without him in it was the icing on the cake. This episode is one that stuck with me as a kid, and it definitely taught me a lot. But what do you think? Did this episode hit you as hard as it hit me? Are there any dark aspects of this episode that flew right over my head that you noticed? Let me know in the comments down below. I always appreciate seeing your guys' feedback. If you enjoyed this video, do me a huge solid and leave me a comment letting me know what you think, and maybe share it with a friend. And as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.